Hello and welcome to this quick EdgeTX quick tip. Now it's come about because this is the GX12, this is the latest radio from Radio Master. I did a video a couple of weeks ago looking at this before Christmas, and one of the things that was commented on was the number of buttons that are not latching buttons, they just kind of temporary positioned. So you just like, momentary switches. Now the cool thing is that that isn't a disaster. You can actually make it so that those momentary switches act as a latching switch. And in fact, I think in a future version of firmware for this, it's going to be a lot easier to set up, but you can do it right now. But not only can you do it to make it a latching switch, but you can actually do it to do some pretty funky stuff. So if I press the SD switch, which is a momentary switch, you can see that channel 5 is acting as though it's latching. So let me zoom on the screen and let me show you how I've done that. Surprise, surprise, it's using special functions and logical switches. So zoomed in on the screen, hopefully that's a little bit clearer. So what we're going to do is we go into the model menu and we're going to zoom across until we get to something called logical switches. Now this is half of the magic, and what we do, we have two logical switches here that are going to turn on and off, and they're all dealing with something called G1, which is what's called a global variable. Now global variables are great. They're a way to store a value within the radio, and you can have things both increase and decrease and also set the value of those. They're like a variable in regular programming if you've done any programming in your past. And this basically has it so that if I press the button, we have logical switch 1 comes on. If I press the momentary switch again, it comes off. And you'll notice that logical switch 2 briefly came on because logical switch 2 has a job as well. So let's see that again. Logical switch 1 comes on, logical switch 1 goes off, and logical switch 2 was briefly working. The way this is actually done is here in special functions. What we've done is we've set that whenever that button is pressed, it's going to adjust the value of the global variable. It's going to increment it by 1. So if I go up here and we zoom across, if I press and hold the enter key, it gives us the options here, what we want to do with the global variable. We can set it as a constant, we can set it a percentage, we can even set it as a source value, all these kind of things. So what we have done is we've just set it so that it's going to increment it by +1. So that means that whenever I press the button, the global variable starts by default when the radio boots up as value of 0. If I press the button briefly, you can see the button's pressed, the SD has gone bold there. That's going to increment the value of the global variable to 1. However, if I press it again and it increments to a global variable value of 2, then logical switch 2 is going to be activated, and logical switch 2's job is actually to put the global variable back to 0. So in reality, all it's going to do is flip-flop between a global variable of 0 and 1. That is what is actually being used to turn on the logical switch 0, 1. So we can see it's on now. If I press the button, it's off. If I press it again, it's on. And all that's happening, the reason that is going on and off as I press the button again and again and again, is that that global variable is changing between 0 and 1. How do we use that in a mix? Well, it's a logical switch, so we can use it exactly like we would anything else. So if I just zoom back all the way into the mixes, you'll see here that I've just set up channel 5 with a source of logical switch 1, nothing else in it, weight of 100, and by doing that, if we go back all the way out again, by just briefly pressing the button, you can see that that is now acting as a switch. However, we don't have to just limit ourselves to 2 positions. Using this and using this method, we can actually do some pretty funky things. Let me go into the model menu and pick another model that I've set up. Let's select that one. This time, if we go into the model menu and zoom across, what I've done is I've set up a whole row of logical switches here. Let me get it so they're all on the screen. There we go. Logical switches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as I press the button on the radio, you'll see that the logical switches will increment 1 by 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it goes back to 1. Why does it go back to 1? Well, logical switch 6's job is to reset the counter again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is different, and you can see here that what it's doing is it's basically turning on each logical switch as the global variable value is incremented as we press the momentary switch. In terms of the next page, wow, it kind of looks exactly the same. The only difference here is that we've set it up for logical switch 6. The last in the sequence is the one that resets it back to 0. So now we actually have a whole slew of logical switches that as we press the button, will kind of round robin. Now you could use those for all kinds of different things in the setups that you do. Could be used for flaps, could be used for flight modes, whatever it is. But this is just a cute way where if you have a momentary switch on your radio, because EdgeTX is so incredibly powerful, you don't have to settle for it only activating when you press the button. You can have it so that the radio can do some pretty funky stuff. Thank you for watching my video. Check out the playlist, and adding Pedantry 60 to your search terms will help you find my content. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. You can support the time I spend here answering questions and helping others by using the links in the video description.